Hey guys, it's Carla. Today I'm working on a canvas panel with acrylic paint. I've got white, King's Gold, Flamenco Red, Burnt Umber, and black. So anything close to those colors will work. The first thing I want to do, and this is not glazing liquid. It works the same as glazing liquid. It's, oh, I'm having a brain cramp. Paint extender. I'm sorry. Paint extender. And I buy that by the gallon at Home Depot, and it's a whole lot cheaper than buying glazing liquid. All right. So, I'm going to start by covering the whole canvas with this wine color. And red and black make a nice wine color, so I'm going to thin it down. Touch of black. Don't want to get too carried away with the black. Okay, something like that. And I'm just using a synthetic brush and just brushing this on real messy. I'll still be able to see my outline through it because it's thinned down. But the reason I want this color on the background is because it kind of brings the whole painting together if like a main part of your painting is the undercoat. Like the wine obviously is what this painting focuses on. So I'm using that wine color so that when I paint real messy like I do and parts of the background shows through, it's going to be that wine color, and that will make the whole painting cohesive. Right now I'm just trying to get rid of any thick spots so it'll dry faster because I'm very impatient. Okay. So as you can see, the outline is still there. You can paint the canvas first and then put the outline on. That's fine, but I already had my outline there, so I'm just painting over it. All right, so now I'm going to start on, I think I'll start on maybe the, maybe I'll start on the background. So I'm using that synthetic brush again. Let me come up with a good color I want to use. Maybe since I've already got that wine color back there, maybe just a dirty white will work. Maybe something like that. And I want to do this real messy so that some of the background does show through. That actually might be all of the background there is. Okay. So now with some extender, I'm going to start on his robe. And this is going to be very dull to begin with, but I'll brighten it up. Okay, and then his hand. I'm being very messy with this. Now, right in here, it's going to be darker because it's in shadow. And there's going to be some dark lines. Again, just very messy. Okay, let me go ahead and put some color on the pots. I'm kind of thinking about using a palette knife. Yeah, let me try that. So this is one that it's pointed on the end, so it'll get into smaller places. But crocks are really like old looking and cracked and stuff, so I think it might be good to use the palette knife. The palette knife gives you a texture that you just can't get with any kind of brush. So if you want that really old looking weathered look, then palette knife is nice. Now I don't have a knife that's small enough to really do these rims well. So I'm going to attempt it with a brush, and like I said, you can't get that same effect with a brush, but I can try to get close by laying my brush flat. This is just a synthetic flat brush, and just barely letting it skim over it. I'm not putting any pressure on it. I'll do the same thing with the gold. Alright, now I can go ahead and start on my wine. So I've already got the base color for it, so a lot of the work is already done. So now I'm going to mix up this dark wine color. And kind of decide where the darks and the lights are going to be. Now right here is going to be a shadow from his hand. So obviously that's dark. I want to form this kind of circular motion right here where the water is dripping off his finger. And then just black. Gotta be careful with just black, but in fact I want to put a little bit of that in it because black is just so strong. But I'm going to put this very darkest shade in. Now back here, in this one, there's just not a lot going on back there, so I'm just going to put in a fairly dark shadow right here under the rim, the back rim, and then just kind of bring some of it down. All right, now I want some shadow coming up on the rim back here, so I'm doing like I did with the yellow. I'm just kind of grazing over it. Not a lot of paint on the brush. There's a few things that I have to really define so that it's obvious what it is. I want most of it to be loose, but I do have to define a few things. So there's some places where it's going to be shaded. Dirty it up a little bit. Okay, now same thing back here. And this just helps to give it the dimension that it needs. So once I've got that shadow color in, I can come back with white and put in some of the highlights. I'm going to go back to my flat brush and kind of put in some more shadow down here. So since the hand is casting a shadow right here, that means my light is coming from this side. So this is going to be the dark side of my crock. So I'm just going to very loosely brush in some shadow there. Same thing back here on this one. All right, now before I move on to the highlights in the wine, I'm gonna go ahead and put some color some light on him. Very loosely and in the direction of the creases and stuff in the robe, but without getting too detailed. All right, going back to my smaller brush, start putting his hand in. So this is kind of a thin down brown. I'm going to paint it all with this, but then come back with highlights. Okay, back to the robe. This is for shadow. So right here it would be darker, keeping my brush strokes going in the direction of the folds. Maybe some dark creases here. Again, I'm almost laying my brush down to just kind of skim across it. Now I see a place that I really want to be brighter, like the light is shining through it. All right, now back to the hand. I'm just going back and forth as things dry. So I'm using my round brush. I want to go in with kind of a bright highlight right here. So again, my light is coming from this side. So these fingers are going to be highlighted on this side. I'm taking my time right here because this is a more important feature than a lot of it, so some things do require detail. I'm going to switch to my liner brush to put in this thin backlighting on the left side of the fingers. You might just have to look at your reference photo and see what's going on here. I want to reshape his hand right here. I'm just playing with this until it looks right to me. I've told you before, hands are so hard to paint. So just do the best you can with it. And you might walk away from it and come back and see something else that it needs. Now after a while there'll be drips coming off of these fingers. But for now, just want to get them highlighted right. So maybe what it needs, mine anyway, maybe yours doesn't. Maybe you got it right to begin with, but right here I want this rope to come on around like this. Something like that. Now another thing I want is to put some highlights on these. So I want to, I've got a clump of white in there. You get away. So I want to mix up a really pale shade, and with my brush laying flat, just kind of scumble some of this in there. Now before I move on, there's some places where I want a much darker shadow to give it more depth. Maybe right here, right underneath this rim, and then kind of fades off to the rest. Maybe same thing up here. Okay, now with my bigger brush, I'm going to go back to my robe and just bring in some highlight. Using my liner brush to put some backlighting on this edge of the robe. And Maybe right here. Painting his fingernails. Actually, I'm just putting a highlight on them, but okay, now I'm going to move on to the water. I'm just going to use my round brush. And I want that wine color again, but this time I'm going to add some white to it. Because there's places right here that are quite a bit lighter than the rest. I want to keep that motion going though of this circle of water right here. All right, now with my liner brush, let's start putting my drips in. So this is kind of a stream of water that comes down to this main splash right here. Thicken it up a little bit. And then dab in some water. So I mean some splashes. Maybe this one's broken up. It's not quite as thick of a stream. Actually, I'm going to use water instead of extender. Gotta keep this illusion going of that circle. Kind of looking around to see if I need to brighten anything up. It's always important to know, to keep in mind where your light source is coming from. So if it's coming from over here, it's going to shine against this side of the rim, but not against this side. In fact, I might need to darken that side up a little bit just to enhance that illusion. See how much dimension that gave it. Do it here too. Define this a little better. Now the only other thing I see I want to do is kind of change the background a little bit. So let's see what I want back there. Maybe a brownish black shade, but very thin down. Get it a little bit darker right in certain areas. And this is not for the sake of the background, but for the sake of the objects in the foreground. It makes them show up better. Now, just want to see if there's anything else that it needs. Maybe it does need a little. Shadows and highlights are so important. And if you don't get them dark or light enough, then the whole painting looks too flat. So just make sure that all of your darks are dark and all of your lights are light enough. All right, I think that does it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.